Hello everyone, here is Afra Syab. Today we are going to solve Cambridge IGCSE Physics Paper 2, Multiple Choice Extended, held on May or June 2021 and paper code is 1524 with variant 22. So let's start from question number 1. Question number 1. A micrometer screw gauge is used to determine the radius of a copper wire. The reading on the screw gauge when measuring the diameter of the wire is 3.12 mm. The reading on the screw gauge with no wire is 0.04 mm. What is the radius of the wire? So here we have to find out the radius of wire. MCQs A 1.52 mm, B 1.54 mm, C 1.56 mm and D 1.58 mm. So first of all here zero error is given which is 0.04 mm. So as we know that this zero error is positive, when we have to make the correction then we subtract it the diameter of the wire that is measured with the screw gauge. So I write here diameter will be equal to 3.12 minus 0.04 which is equal to 3.08 millimeter. So this is the diameter of the wire when measuring with the screw gauge after applying correction. Next here we have to find out the radius. We know that diameter is double of the radius. So radius will be equal to half of the diameter. So I divide this value by 2 which will be equal to 1.54 millimeter. So this is the radius of wire which is given by the option B. Question number 2. An aeroplane flies from town X to the town Z, stopping for 1 hour at the town Y to pick up more passengers. The distance between the towns are shown. So here are 3 towns X, Y and Z. The distance from town X to Y is 300 km, while from Y to Z the distance is 200 km. The total time taken between leaving X and arriving at point Z is 3 hours. What is the average speed of the aeroplane in the air? So here we have to find out the average speed. Average speed will be equal to total distance divided by total time that is taken to cover that distance. So here total time is given which is 3 hours, but it is also given that the aeroplane stops for 1 hour at a town Y. It means that the total time will be 2 hours to cover the distance from X to Z. So I write here average speed will be equal to total distance will be 300 plus 200 divided by total time is 2 hours. It will be 500 divided by 2 and the unit of distance is kilometer and the unit of time is hour. So 500 over 2 kilometer per hour. From here option C is correct. Question number 3. The graph shows how the speed of an object varies with the time, at which labeled time is the object decelerating. So, at which point the speed of the object goes on decreasing. So, from graph, we can see here from 0 to point A. It is a straight line. It means that the object is moving with the uniform speed and also up to point B. At this point, it is a straight line. So, this actually curve shows that the speed of the object is uniform. After that, from point B to this point, it is constant. The speed of the object remains constant, but after this point, up to the end of this journey, the speed is decreasing, means that object is decelerating. So at point D, the object is decelerating. So here D is correct. Going towards the next question. Question number 4. Two objects X and Y are suspended from identical springs. The extension in both springs is same. So here extension is same. What does this show about the masses and about the weights of the object X and Y? Masses and weights. MCQ say the mass of X is equal to mass of Y. Weight of the X is equal to weight of the Y. B. Mass of X is equal to mass of Y. Weight of X is less than the weight of Y. C. Mass of X is greater than the mass of Y. Weight of X is greater than the weight of Y. D. Mass of X is greater than mass of Y and weight of X is equal to the weight of Y. So going back to figure, here we apply Hooke's law that F is equal to Kx, where X is extension that remains same. And here K is spring constant. As it is given that both of the springs are identical, which means that the value of spring constant is also same. So I write here it is also same, which means that F, which is the force, it also remains same. So this force is actually equal to weight. It means that weight remains same. So when the weight is same, mass of course will be same. So here both mass and weight remains the same. So in the option A, mass of X is equal to mass of Y and weight of X is equal to weight of Y. This MCQ is correct. Question number 5. 3 students are asked what they understand by the term mass. Their answers are listed. 1. Mass is the property of an object that resists a change in motion. 2. Mass is the quantity of matter an object contains. 3. Mass is the effect of gravitational field on an object. Which student are correct? MCQs A. 1, 2 and 3. B. 1 and 2 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 2 and 3 only. So from here we know that mass is the property of the object that resists a change in motion. So 1 is correct, and also mass is the quantity of matter an object contains. It means that 2 is also correct. Option 3 is incorrect because here mass is not the effect of gravitational field. It's basically the weight. So option B is correct, which is only 1 and 2. Question number 6. The mass and volume of 4 different materials A, B, C and D are measured. Water has a density of 1000 kg per meter cube. Which material will float in water? So which one of the following material A, B, C and D float in the water? Also the density of water is given. In order to find out that which object float in the water, we have to find out the density of each of these materials. So first of all, I find out the density of the material A. I write here density of A is equal to mass per unit volume. The mass of A is 452 divided by volume is 0.04. So that the value of density will be equal to 11,300 kilogram per meter cube. For the B, it is mb over vb. Mass is given 2340 divided by volume is 0.30. So that density is equal to 7800 kilogram per meter cube. For material C, mass is 90 divided by volume is 0.03. So that density is equal to 3000 kilogram per meter cube. For material D, it is md over vd, which is 320 divided by 0.40, which is equal to 800 kilogram over meter cube. It is also given that density of water is equal to 1000 kilogram per meter cube. Now we see that material D has smaller density as compared to density of water. So the material D will float in the water. If the density of the object is smaller than the density of the water, then it will float. So from here, D option is correct. Question number 7. A satellite orbits the Earth above the atmosphere at constant speed. The diagram shows the satellite at one point in its circular orbit around the Earth. Which labeled arrow shows the direction of the resultant force on the satellite at the position shown. So here we can see that this satellite is moving in the orbit around the Earth and its speed is constant. So which direction is the resultant force? When the object is moving in a circular path, there is a force that is acting towards the center of circle. So in this case, the force will be acting in the direction of D. So here option D is correct. In the direction of D, the resultant force on the satellite is acting. Question number 8. The diagram shows a tower crane lifting a crate. The crate begins at X. The counterweight can be moved between point P and Q to keep the crane balanced. So first of all, there is a tower crane lifting a crate and there is also the counterweight. This moves between 2 points P and Q so that the crane remains balanced. The crane is shown by the points X and Y. The crate is slowly moved from position X to position Y. The table describes the effect that the movement has on the clockwise movement about the pivot created by the crate, direction the counterweight moves to keep the crane balanced. So first of all, here is movement and second is the counterweight. MCQ A, increases, move towards P. Increases, moves towards Q. Decreases, moves towards P and decreases, moves towards Q. So which one of the following is correct here? Going back to figure, we can see here that the movement is actually the product of force and the perpendicular distance from the pivot point. So here crate is shown at the position X and when it moves towards left and come at the position Y. Then pivot point is this point. When I draw a line here, First of all, initially the perpendicular distance is this. But when the crate is moving at the position y, then the perpendicular distance is this. Now we can see here that the distance decreases. It means that the moment decrease here. Also, here moment decrease, which is given in the C and D. So counterweight moves towards P or Q. So it will move towards Q. Here is the counterweight. It moves towards Q to conserve the movement. So I tick here option D. Next question, question number 9. A car travels forward along a straight horizontal road. Only the horizontal forces acting on the car as shown. So there are two forces acting on the car, air resistance and friction, and driving forces. First of all, we see the magnitude of these forces. The magnitude of the driving forces is the length of this arrow, while the magnitude of the air resistance and friction is basically shown by this distance. This is the length of this arrow. So we can see here that the air resistance and friction forces is always greater than the driving forces in this case. The length of each arrow represents the size of each force. Which statement describes the effect of these forces on the motion of the car? A. The car moves at constant speed. B. The car starts to move backwards. C. The car slows down. And D. The car forward speed increases. So here, as the car is moving in this direction and the forces that are acting in opposite direction has larger size, so the car will slow down. So here option C is correct. In the option A, it is given that car moves at a constant speed. So when both of these forces, that is driving force and air resistance and frictional forces, are equal, then the car will move at the constant speed. The car cannot start to move backward direction, and the car forward speed increases only when the forward forces is larger as compared to backward forces. So all of the other options are incorrect. Question number 10. An object of mass 2.5 kg is acted upon by the force of 8.0 Newton. The object has an initial speed of 3.0 meter per second, and after time t, the speed of object has increased to 7.0 meter per second. For which time t does the force act? Option A 0.32 second, B 0.80 second, C 1.3 second, and D 3.1 second. So here we have to find out the value of the time. I write here product of force and time is actually equal to impulse, and it is equal to change in momentum. So I write here m v minus u. From this equation, time will be equal to v minus u divided by f. So t will be equal to, mass is given 2.5 kg multiplied by v, which is the final speed, 7.0 minus initial speed is 3.0 divided by force, that is 8.0 Newton. So that the value of time comes to be 1.3 second. So from here option C is correct. Question number 11. Two railway wagons are on the same straight horizontal track. One wagon is moving with initial velocity u and the other wagon is stationary. The moving wagon collides with the stationary wagon. The two wagons connect to each other and moves with the velocity 5.80 meter per second. So first of all, two wagons are shown. The mass of first wagon is 8,000 kg, while the second one has mass 12,000 kg. It is given that second wagon is stationary. It means that its initial speed is equal to 0. Then after the collision, they move with the common velocity, and their velocity is 5.80 meter per second, which is given here. What is the initial velocity u of the moving wagon before they collide? So here we have to find out the initial velocity u of the first wagon. So here we use the law of conservation of momentum, that the total momentum of this system before collision is equal to total momentum of the system after collision. So I write here m1 v1 plus m2 v2 is equal to m1 v1 prime plus m2 v2 prime. So here v1 is basically the initial velocity of the first wagon. I also write this equation as m1 u1 plus m2 u2 is equal to m1 v1 plus m2 v2. From here we have to find out the value of u1, which is the initial velocity of the moving wagon. So I write here mass is 8,000 multiplied by u1 plus the velocity of second wagon is 0, so it will be 0. Then both of these wagon moves with the common speed. So I write here m1 plus m2 multiplied by v, where v is the velocity 5.80 meter per second. So here mass will be 8,000 plus 12,000 multiplied by 5.80, and it will be 8,000 u1. From here u1 will be equal to 20,000 multiplied by 5.80 divided by 8,000, so that the value of u1 will be equal to 14.5 meter per second. So D option is correct. Question number 12. A dog of mass 9.6 kg is running across a field. The kinetic energy of the dog is 9.4 joule. What is the speed of the dog? So here we have to find out the value of the speed. Option A 0.70 meter per second, B 0.98 meter per second, C 1.4 meter per second, D 2.0 meter per second. So here kinetic energy is equal to half mv square. I write here and we have to find out the value of v. So by rearranging this equation, v square is equal to 2 kinetic energy divided by mass, and by taking square root on both sides. So v will be equal to 2 multiply kinetic energy 9.4 divided by mass is 9.6. So v will be equal to 1.4 meter per second. So here option C is correct. Question number 13. A man pushes a heavy crate along a horizontal surface. Which row shows the measurements he makes to calculate his average power? So first of all, we know that power is energy over time, where in this case energy is equal to work done divided by time, and work done is the product of force and distance moved divided by time. So power is calculated by the three quantities: force, distance and time. So here it is given distance moved size of the pushing force, time taken, weight of the crate. So which one of the following is correct? Here tick shows that distance involved and this cross shows that distance does not involve. From here option A is correct. Question number 14. The diagram shows a simple mercury barometer used to measure the atmospheric pressure. Here is a mercury barometer that is used for the measurement of atmospheric pressure. Point P labels this region and there is a level L. There is mercury inside this tube. Atmospheric pressure decreases. Which row states what happens to the pressure at point P and what happens to the level L of the mercury? Pressure at P, level L. MCQs A, decreases, falls. B, decreases, rises. C, stays the same. C, stays the same and falls. D, stays the same and rises. So from here, region P is basically the vacuum, which is just air. There is nothing. So the pressure at the point P remains the same, and this is shown by the option C and D. What happens to the level at L? So when the pressure remains same, the level at the L falls because the atmospheric pressure decreases. So the MCQ C is correct. The diagram shows two identical containers filled to the same height with liquids of relatively high and low density. Point A and C are at the same small distance below the surface of the liquids. Point B and D are at the same small distance above the base of the container. Which point has the highest pressure? So which one of them has the highest pressure? It is given that the liquid of high density contains 2 point A and B, while the liquid with low density contains 2 point C and D. So at the point A, B, C, D, which point has the highest pressure? So this is basically for the point B, because point A is below the surface and its distance is very small. But for the point B, distance is large. And the pressure is P is equal to rho GH. Here H actually represents the distance. So pressure will be larger when the distance is greater. So here B option is correct. Also for the case of C and D, the C point is above the base of the container and D point is also above the base of container, but its distance is very large. So the pressure at the depth is larger when the depth is greater. So option B is correct here. Question number 16. A student writes 4 statements about evaporation of the liquid. 1. Evaporation happens at any temperature. 2. Evaporation happens at one fixed temperature only. 3. Evaporation happens at the surface of liquid only. 4. Evaporation happens throughout the liquid. Which statements are correct? A. 1 and 3. B. 1 and 4. C. 2 and 3. D. 2 and 4. So which one of the following is correct here? We know that evaporation happens only at the surface and also it can take place at any temperature. So from here 1 and 3 is correct. Accordingly option A is correct. Question number 17. A diver uses breathing apparatus underwater at a depth where the pressure is 1.25 into 10 to the power 5 Pascal. A bubble of gas breathed out by the diver has a volume of 20 cubic centimeter when it is released. The bubble moves upward to the surface of the water. At the surface of the water, the atmospheric pressure is 1.00 into 10 to the power 5 Pascal. The temperature of the water is the same at all depths. What is the volume of this bubble when it reaches at the surface of the water? So we have to find out the volume of this bubble. First of all, here I use the Boyle's law, that P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2. From here we have to find out the value of V2. It will be equal to P1 V1 over P2. So P1 is 1.25 multiplied by 10 to the power 5 and V1 is 20 divided by P2 is 1.00 into 10 to the power 5. So this is the volume of the bubble and its value comes to be 25 cubic centimeter. So from here option D is correct. Question number 18. The diagram shows a metal bridge. The ends of the bridge are fixed to the sides of a valley. The air temperature is much less at the night than it is during the day. The solid line shows the bridge during the coldest part of the night. So this solid line is basically when the temperature is low or during the night. Which dashed line shows the bridge at the hottest part of the day? So first of all, it's a metal bridge, and when the temperature is increased, then the thing expands. So there will be expansion in the hot day. So from all of these, dashed line A is correct, which is above the solid line. Question number 19. Which statement describes the thermal capacity of the mass of water at 20 degrees C? A. The energy needed to evaporate all of the water. B. The energy needed to raise the temperature of the water from 0 degrees C to 20 degrees C. C. The energy needed to raise the temperature of the water from 20 degrees C to 21 degrees C. And D. The energy needed to raise the temperature of the water to its boiling point. So first of all, it is given in the question that what is the thermal capacity at 20 degrees C. It means that the energy needed to raise the temperature of the water from 20 degrees C to 21 degrees C. So option C is correct. Question number 20. A chef tests different types of the saucepans. She wants the material that is the best conductor for the bottom of the pan and the best insulator for the handle. Which materials should she use? Bottom of the pan and handle. A. Metal and metal. B. Metal and wood. C. Plastic and wood. D. Wood and wood. So which one of the material is used here? As it is given that handle is made from the insulator. So from here wood is insulator. And the bottom of the pan is made from the metal because it's a good conductor. So the bottom of the pan is metal and the handle is wood. So B option is correct here. Question number 21. The diagram shows two water waves P and Q that are traveling at the same speed on the surface of a pond. The diagrams are drawn to the same scale. Here are P and Q. Which wave has the greatest amplitude and which has the greatest frequency? So basically frequency is the total number of cycles. In P and Q we can see that the number of cycles in Q is larger. So Q has larger frequency. We also check the amplitude. amplitude is the maximum distance from the mean line. So in the case of Q, the amplitude is this, while in the case of P, the amplitude is this. So Q has larger amplitude. Options are greater amplitude, greater frequency. So Q has larger amplitude and frequency. So option D is correct, which contains Q and Q. Question number 22. The wavefronts in the diagram spread out after passing through a gap in a barrier. This is an example of diffraction. So here is phenomena of diffraction. These are the wavefronts, while the direction of travel of wave is from bottom to top. These are two barriers. Which changes will increase the spreading out of the wavefronts? These are the spread wavefronts, but their bending or spreading is very small. So what changes are required to increase the spreading of the wavefronts? A. Reduce the size of the gap and keep the wavelength same. B. Increase the size of the gap and keep the wavelength same. C. Keep the size of the gap same and reduce the wavelength. D. Keep the size of the gap the same and increase the frequency. So first of all, here we compare the wavelength, that is the distance between any two wavefronts, with the gap between the barrier. So this is the gap between the barrier. If the gap between the barrier is smaller as compared to wavelength, then there will be more spreading or more diffraction. But if the wavelength is smaller as compared to gap, then there will be less spreading, which is given in this diagram. So here we have to increase the spreading. What we have to do? For more spreading, the wavelength should be larger and gap should be smaller. In our case, reduce the size of the gap and keep the wavelength same. So here A is correct because here we have to keep the wavelength same. Question number 23. So here is a figure that shows a prism. A prism is made from transparent plastic. In this plastic, light travels at 0.80 c, where c is the speed of light in air. Light enters one face of the prism at right angle as shown. The light just escapes from the sloping face of the prism. What is angle theta? So here we have to find out this value of the angle. So first of all, I write here refractive index is equal to 1 over sine function of critical angle. And refractive index is the ratio of speed of light in air to the speed of light in any medium. So basically here we have to find out the angle theta, which is represented by C. I can also write here theta. So it will be C over V is equal to 1 over sine theta. I put values here. C over V is given 0.80 C. It is equal to 1 over sine theta. This C cancels by this. So sine theta will be equal to 0.80. Theta is equal to sine inverse of 0.80, which is equal to 53 degrees. So here theta is basically equal to 53 degree. Option D is correct. Question number 24. The diagram shows the formation of an image by a thin converging lens. So here is a diagram which shows the formation of the image by the converging lens. Object is placed on the left side of the lens while the image is placed on the right side of lens. There are 2 points which is labeled with F. These are focus points. Which description of the image is correct? A. Diminished and upright. B. Diminished and inverted. C. Enlarged and upright. D. Enlarged and inverted. So first of all, here we compare the size of object with the size of image. We can see here, this is the size of object, while this is the size of image. So the size of image is smaller as compared to the size of object. It means that image is diminished. And second thing is that this image is inverted because the object is placed in upward direction while the image is formed on the downward direction. So this image is inverted. From here, B is correct. Question number 25. A ray of monochromatic light is incident on a glass prism. Here is a glass prism and a ray of monochromatic light is incident on this. What is the monochromatic light and which ray diagram shows this ray as it passes through the prism and emerges from the opposite side? So first of all, here are two diagrams, X and Y. In the X, we can see that there is a single ray that is incident on the prism and also emerges out of this prism. In the diagram Y, a single ray is split into two, red and violet. Meaning of the monochromatic light and correct diagram. Monochromatic light is a light of single frequency. So I write here single frequency. When the frequency is single, then the wavelength should be single. But in the diagram Y, two colors are shown, red and violet, and in diagram Y spectrum is formed, which is incorrect because the monochromatic light has only single wavelength, which is shown by the one light in X. So MCQs are A, multicolored light and X. So it is not correct because monochromatic light is a single frequency. B, multicolored light and Y, it is also incorrect. C, light of single frequency and X. So this is correct. Question number 26. In which way does ultrasound differ from audioable sound? So here we have to differentiate between the ultrasound and audible sound. A, ultrasound can travel through the vacuum. Ultrasound has a longer wavelength. Ultrasound has higher frequency. Ultrasound travels at speed of light. So from here, ultrasound has higher frequency. I write here ultrasound and audible. So ultrasound has higher frequency and audible has lower frequency. We also compare the wavelength. The wavelength of ultrasound is smaller as compared to audible. So here option C is correct. B is not correct because here it is given that ultrasound has longer wavelength, which is incorrect. Question number 27. The diagram shows a permanent bar magnet. A student draws arrow to show the direction of the magnetic field at 4 points. Which arrow correctly show the direction of the magnetic field at that position? So first of all, here is bar magnet and here we have to correctly show the direction of the magnetic field. We know that the magnetic lines emerges from the north and enters into south. So here two poles are shown. Here is north and south. The arrow is outward direction. It means that the lines are emerging from the north. We also check the arrow on the other side, that is on the south side. Here arrow is also in outward direction, but this arrow should be inward because the magnetic lines enters into the south pole. So A and B is not correct. Also C is not correct. So only D is correct, which shows that the magnetic lines emerges from the north pole. Question number 28. A negatively charged insulating rod P is suspended from an insulating thread. A second insulating rod Q is brought close to rod P. Rod P swings towards Q. What can be deduced from this experiment? So first of all, we have two rods. Here is rod P and it is negatively charged insulating rod, and it is suspended with the help of thread, which is also insulating. We also have the second rod, which is also insulating, and it is brought closer to rod P. I place here second rod and it is labeled with Q. This is insulating. The charge on this is not given. Rod P swings towards Q. So the rod P swings towards Q. It is due to the reason that the rod Q may be positively charged or it may be uncharged. So MCQs are given A. The rod Q is either negatively charged or is uncharged. B. Q is either positively charged or it is uncharged. So from here B is correct. Because the charge on the P rod is negative, there must be the positive charge on the Q or it must be uncharged. Question number 29. A piece of wire is 40 cm long and the diameter of this wire is 2.0 mm. The resistance of the piece of wire is 0.30 ohm. Which wire of the same material has a resistance of 0.15 ohm? Length is given in centimeter and diameter is given in millimeter. So here we have to show that which one of the wire has the resistance of 0.15 ohm. So first of all, I write here resistance is equal to resistivity length over area. So the area of wire is pi r square and here diameter is given. Diameter is double of the radius. So I write here pi d square by 4. It will be equal to 4 rho L over pi d square. So we use this formula and first of all find out the resistivity. Resistance is given 0.30, pi is 3.14, diameter is 2.0 millimeter. And we have converted this into meters and taking its square divided by 4 multipliable length, which is 40 centimeter. So the resistivity comes to be 2.35 into 10 की power minus 6 and the unit is ohm meter. Next, it is given that the material of both of these wires is same, which means that the resistivity of both of these wires are same. So I use this value of the resistivity to find out the resistance of the other wire. I write here, again I use the same formula that R is equal to 4 rho L over pi d square. So here I write for option A 4 multiplied by 2.35 into 10 की power minus 6. Length is 20 centimeter divided by pi, which is 3.14, multiplied by 1.0 into 10 की power minus 3 square. So the value of resistance for A is 0.59 ohm. Now I am going to calculate for the wire D. R is equal to 4 multiplied by length is 20 centimeter while the diameter is 4.0. So 2.35 into 10 की power minus 6, 20 into 10 की power minus 2, 3.14 into 4.0, 10 की power minus 3 square. It will be equal to 0.037 ohm. For option C, R is equal to, here length is 80 centimeter while the diameter is 1.0 millimeter. So I write here 4 multiplied by 2.35 into 10 की power minus 6 and here length is 80 into 10 की power minus 2 divided by 3.14, 1.0 into 10 की power minus 3 square. So resistance will be equal to 2.39 ohm. Now for the last one D. Here for D, length is 80 while the diameter is 4.0. So I write here 4 into 2.35 multiplied by 10 की power minus 6, 80 into 10 की power minus 2 divided by 3.14 into 4.0, 10 की power minus 3 square. So it will be equal to 0.15 ohm. So in this question, which wire of the same material has a resistance of 0.15? So D option is correct, for which I calculate the resistance and it comes to be 0.15 ohms. Question number 30. A resistor transfers 240 joule of energy when a charge of 60 coulomb flow through it in 15 seconds. What is the potential difference across the resistor and what is current in the resistor? So first of all, here we have to find out the value of potential difference and current. Potential difference is measured in volt while the current is measured in ampere. So current is basically the rate of flow of charges, which is Q over T. Q is given here 60 divided by time is 15 seconds. So it will be equal to 4 ampere. In order to calculate the potential difference, it is given that energy is 240 joule. So here I write power is equal to product of current and potential difference, and power is the rate of transfer of energy. By using this formula, V will be equal to E over I T. Energy is 240 divided by current, that we calculate here 4 ampere, multiplied by time is 15. So the value of V will be equal to 4.0 volt. From here, first option is 0.25, 0.25, B 0.25, 4.0, C 4.0, 0.25, D 4.0 and 4.0. So current is 4.0 ampere and voltage is also 4.0 ampere. So D option is correct. Question number 31. 3 resistors are connected in series with a cell. The values of the resistances are 1.0 ohm, 2.0 ohms and 3.0 ohms. The value resistances for all of these resistors are different. Which statement is correct? A. The current in each resistor is different and the potential difference across each resistor is different. B. The current in each resistor is same and potential difference across each resistor is different. C. The potential difference across each resistor is same and the current in each resistor is different. D. The potential difference across the cell is greater than the sum potential differences across each resistor. So here, when the resistors are connected in the series, then the potential difference values are different, but the current values are same. I write here, current remains same while the potential difference changes. So from here, option B is correct. I circle option B, which shows that current is same but the potential difference is different. Question number 32. The diagram shows two resistors connected in the circuit. What is the combined resistance of the resistors in the circuit? So first of all, there are two resistors, 6.0 ohm and 12 ohms, and both of these are connected in parallel. We have to find out the combined resistance. So in the parallel combination, combined resistance is calculated by using the formula 1 over R is equal to 1 over R1 plus 1 over R2. R1 is 6.0 plus R2 is 12. So it will be 12, 2.0 plus 1.0, 3.0 over 12. 1 over R is equal to 1 over 4.0 and the value of R will be equal to 4.0 ohm. So this is the value of the resistance. In option A, it is given 4.0 ohm. So option A is correct. Question number 33. Which logic gate has the truth table shown? Here are two inputs and single output. The truth table is shown. When inputs are low, output is high, which is equal to 1. When the inputs are different, like 0, 1 or 1, 0, output is again high. And when both of the inputs are high, the output is low. So this truth table is actually for the NAND gate. So I see here that which symbol shows the NAND gate. In the option A, it is AND, option B is OR, C is for NAND. So C is correct. Last, D is for NOR gate. Question number 34. A student holds a bar magnet next to the coil of the wire connected to the galvanometer. So first of all, here is a magnet and also the coil that is attached with the galvanometer, which will cause a reading on the galvanometer. A. Holding the magnet stationary inside the coil. B. Holding the magnet stationary with the S pole next to the coil. C. Moving the both magnet and the coil to the right at the same speed. D. Moving the magnet and the coil towards each other at the same speed. So first of all, when I bring the bar magnet near the coil, then what will happen? The magnetic lines of force of the bar magnet also passing through the coil, due to which there is induced EMF and also the induced current, which is shown by the galvanometer here. There is also second possibility that when I move the coil towards the bar magnet, then again there will be the induced EMF and current, which is shown by the galvanometer. It means that here option D is correct. when I move the magnet and coil towards each other at the same speed. Question number 35. High voltages are used to transmit electricity over large distances. Which row states the effect on the current and explain why this is benefit? Effect on current and explanation. MCQs A. Current increases, decreases thermal energy losses. B. Current increases, decreases sparking across insulator and that support the cable. C. Current decreases, decreases thermal energy losses. D. Current decreases, decreases sparking across insulator that support the cable. So first of all, here we have to decrease the power loss. Then the high voltages are used and then the current will be smaller because P is equal to IV and also P is equal to I square R. When voltage is high, then the current will be small. So when the current is small, power is directly proportional to current. When the current is small, there will be small loss of power, which means that it decreases the thermal energy losses. So from here, option C is correct. That current also decreases and it decreases the thermal energy losses. Question number 36. The diagram shows a DC motor. Here is a DC motor. In which direction will side WX of the coil move? A. Towards the bottom of the page. B. To the left. C. To the right. D. Towards the top of the page. So first of all, here we can see that there is a DC motor and there is a coil with side XW and ZY. The current that is flowing in the side XW is in downward direction, while on the YZ it is in upward direction. This coil is placed in the magnetic field, which is shown by the poles north and south. And the magnetic field points from north to south direction. So here we have to find that in which direction the side WZ of the coil move. So the magnetic field is in this direction while the current is flowing in downward direction. So here actually we have to find out the direction of the force. By using the right hand rule, I rotate the fingers of my right hand from the direction of current towards the direction of magnetic field. And then my thumb will point out the direction of force. By doing this, I observe that the direction of force is towards the top of the page. It means that the side WX move towards the top of the page. So from here, D option is correct. I circle D. Question number 37. The diagram shows alpha particles being scattered by a very thin metal foil. Here is a foil and the alpha particles are coming towards the foil. Three directions are shown: Q, P and R. P, Q and R represent the three directions in which alpha particles are scattered. The number of alpha particles scattered in each direction is NP, NQ and NR. Which sequence correctly show the number of alpha particles from lowest to the highest being scattered in each direction? So first of all, the scattering experiment is basically for the nucleus. Most of the nucleus is empty. It means that most of the particle will be pass straight. So here Q will be larger. I write here NQ. The central part of the nucleus is dense So the small amount of particles will be scattered back. So I write here N, R, and in between them there is NP. That there is also the particles that are scattered at some angle. So here, first of all, smaller is NR, then larger is NP, and then NQ. So from all of these options, D is correct, which shows the correct order. Going towards the next question. Question number 38. Which statement about different isotopes of a certain element must be correct? A. They have different number of electrons. B. They have same number of neutrons. C. They have the same number of nucleons. D. They have same number of protons. So first of all, isotopes are those elements that have same atomic number but different mass number. Atomic number is actually equal to number of proton. So it means that isotopes have the same number of protons, which is given by the option D. So here D is correct. 39. Ba137 is a radioactive isotope of barium. When the nucleus of this isotope decays, there is no change in its composition. It means that the atomic number and mass number remain same. Which type of radiation is emitted? A. Alpha particles, B. Beta particles, C. Gamma rays, and D. Neutrons. So here will be the emission of gamma rays because there is no change on the composition when the gamma rays are emitted. When the alpha particles are emitted, mass number decreases by the 4 while the atomic number decreases by 2. For the beta particle, there is no change in the atomic mass but the atomic number increased by 1. So here option C is correct. Question number 40. A detector is placed near a sample of the radioactive isotope of polonium to monitor the activity of the sample. The graph shows how the activity measured by the detector varies with the time. It includes the activity due to the background radiation, which is 40 counts per second. So this count rate is basically due to the background radiation and also due to the radioactive sample. What is the half-life of this isotope of polonium? A. 2.2 minutes, B. 2.4 minutes, C. 3.2 minutes, and D. 5.0 minutes. So first of all, here we have to calculate the half-life. So from this figure we can see that initial count rate is shown by this point and it is equal to 520. But it is also given that the count rate due to the background radiation is 40 counts per second. In order to find out the half-life, we subtract the background count rate. So the total count rate will be equal to 520 minus 40. This 40 is basically the background count rate. So it will be equal to 480 count per second. It means that initially there are 480 counts per second. So I take different readings from this graph and make a table here. So first of all, I write here count, rate, and here is time, which is measured in minutes. So first of all, when time is 0 minute, then the initial count rate is 480. Secondly, when the time I take 0.8, at this point the count rate is almost 400. So I also have to subtract the background count rate. I write here 400 minus 40, which is equal to 360. It means that at 0.8 minutes, count rate is 360. Next, when the time is 2 minutes, then the count rate is 300. So 300 minus 40 is equal to 260. So the count rate will be 260 at 2.0 minutes. So when time is 3.6, count rate is 200. So 200 minus 40 is equal to 160. It means that there are 160 counts per second at time 3.6. At 7.2, which is at this point, count rate is 100. So 100 minus 40 is equal to 60. So I write here 60 and here 7.2. So from this we can see that when first half-life passes, then the count rate becomes half. I suppose that initially count rate is 480, and when I divide it by 2, it will be 240. So 240 is basically at this point, and when I join this with the time axis, and I can measure time from the time axis, and I think it comes to be 2.4. It means that the half-life is equal to 2.4 minutes. From here, option B is correct.